Welcome everybody to the Personal Health Summit 2015. Thank you so much for being here and investing this time into your own health and your own journey for you to transition towards a state of happiness. The intention for this summit, as you hopefully know by now, is very clearly that we're talking to 30 experts from all around the world in the matter of health and personalized health in particular, in the conversations about exercise, about nutrition, about sleep, about mindfulness, consciousness, compassion, happiness, love, World Health Solutions, biotechnology, medicine, so many different topics that are really bringing together this information to collate it for your benefit so that you can find out exactly where you are at this point in time, what makes you tick, and what you can do to be moving towards that state of health and happiness that we're all ever seeking. So without further ado, I'd like to initially just quickly thank our sponsors, Ultimate Human Foundation, for the amazing work they're doing, working towards the elimination of chronic pain and disease from the planet, and PH360, who's looking at the application of all this personalized health information and epigenetics and really harnessing that information to give you tangible insights as to what foods are best for you, the sort of exercises that are really good for you, the climates and the people to hang out with, your natural talents, all these amazing insights. So please check them out, ph360.me, if you haven't had a chance already. But without further ado, I'd love to welcome Erin Elizabeth today. We're super excited to have Erin here. Erin is a long-time health nut, author and public speaker. Erin's had a passion for the healing arts for nearly 25 years. She started out in her teens working for a green non-profit during her 4 years of her undergrad, and later she trained in Bikram yoga while living in Los Angeles, but gave up the hot classes for Pilates, which she's now been doing for 20 years. Originally from Chicago, Erin now spends most of her year in Florida, exploring restaurants, raw restaurants particularly, hiking, reading, animal rescue, edible landscapes, which is about growing your own groceries, green living, all solar, driving an electric car for 10 years, and investigative journalism. So wow, Erin, looking forward to the conversation today. She's also learning Spanish and surfing, not at the same time. That's an interesting chat for another day, probably. Erin, thank you so much for joining us here on this Personalized Health Summit. It's great to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. That's awesome. I think I forgot some of those things about myself, so it was great to hear. I like that very comprehensive introduction. I love it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, Erin, we'd love to jump in and to start with just to hear a little bit about you and your journey. I know that you've had a fascinating journey for your own personal health story. I'd love if you'd be happy just to share that with the audience so we can get a bit of an understanding about who you are and why you're here at this point in time, and then we can jump into some of the conversations for today.
Sure, I'd be honored. Thank you, and it's great to be here. I guess it would begin with back in the 80s. I had a tick bite, and was camping in my teens and had the tick on the back of my leg probably 2 days and didn't realize it. And so then even from my teens on to just a few years ago, I had symptoms, joint pain, all that kind of stuff, but had the ELISA test for Lyme along the way, the journey of trying to figure out what was wrong. And just, they never suspected Lyme. I even went to some of the top Lyme literate medical doctors and different doctors around the country, pretty well-known authors, that are best-selling author doctors, but they couldn't figure it out. So finally, it was a friend who isn't a doctor said, you've got to have the IGeneX test. So I did that test and discovered that I had a positive blood test for Lyme. So that's really how I found out. And it wasn't until then, I guess, it's been over 2 years now that I found out, just over 2 years, that I found out I was positive, Western blot positive test for Lyme instead of the ELISA test, because no one had ever told me to do that. And even through all the muscle testing, everything else, they had missed it in the past. So.
Right. Wow.
So that's just kind of the introduction. And then I guess also along the way, I had done something long ago where I had, now I wouldn't do such a thing, but I had gotten breast implants, lived in California. And so somehow I was very slender at one point, but I got the implants and immediately began to gain weight. And through that journey, finally got those out. But that was before the Lyme. Even after I had the implants out, the weight didn't come off. But I learned that they were probably not helping just because of my autoimmune system. I can't imagine that they would really help anyone's health for breast implants. So I had those out and did notice a difference right away. But really it was after that, just like months after that, that I got the Lyme diagnosis, that it all began to come together. So.
Wow. Well, Erin, I'd love to hear a little bit more about this because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners either listening in live or watching a replay of this video that will be in a very similar situation, and maybe not exactly having Lyme disease or exactly the same conversation, but a lot of people who have had health issues or health challenges that may have had a lot of tests done over many years, even sometimes decades, that show up nothing and get told they're all fine, but they know innately in themselves that there's something that's just not quite right. And that's what this whole conversation about, this whole series is about, understanding exactly where you're at in your own personal health journey, and how we can start to understand more about this information that exists, so that we can transition towards a state of health. And it's very hard to transition back to health if you're unsure why your body is responding in all these sorts of ways without you knowing. So I'd love just to find out a little bit more, if you're happy to talk a little bit more about that, and I guess from the point of how your journey's been to when you got a diagnosis or something that was the information that was able to help you move forward, and sort of what happened from that point in time.
Sure, definitely. So once I got a diagnosis a little over 2 years ago, I was fortunate to have some of the doctors who'd helped me in the past, but just weren't able to give the diagnosis. And Lyme can really hide, so no discredit to them, because they can be the best, but it can really hide. But once I had that IGeneX, the Western blot test, you've got to have a Western blot test. And so I was fortunate to kind of have them at my disposal to learn from them. And one of the main things at that point, even after the implants were out, I was at 50% body fat. So, I was considered obese. And I didn't even really take many pictures. I know people say I was overweight in some of my photos, but I probably didn't take pictures at my worst. So I had a lot of things going on. The severe weight gain that had occurred, and had been unable to lose a single pound, and then having the Lyme, having the implants out. So I just began a journey of health, dealing with some wonderful doctors. Some I would even Skype if I wasn't able to be there in person with them, and they helped in kind of between several of them. And I'd have to get the consensus of more than one, like say, okay, if those two disagree, but all right, these two agree, to kind of put my own protocol together, which I did. And I opted not to go with the long-term antibiotics. But it wasn't just the Lyme protocol that I think really made the difference, especially with the weight loss or just getting my health back. I think it was recognizing the adrenal fatigue and all the other things, because it's not just whether it's Lyme or someone has thyroid challenge or adrenal fatigue, there are so many components. So I kind of had to address them each individually. And so once I changed my diet, and I began to kind of put my own protocol together with the help of the doctors and a few others who aren't doctors but are kind of Lyme experts. And for weight loss, then everything came together. And I think it sounds like it was a short amount of time, kind of frightening, but I lost 35 to 40 pounds probably within less than 90 days. And then wow. I did break my foot back this year. And even that was kind of a test, because I put like 5 to 7 pounds back on, but for those 2 years, and still I'm fine. I think at 5 pounds added. For those 2 years plus, I kept off every pound of that, just because before I couldn't lose an ounce, just because I had to learn to eat differently, and to I think it was also supplements, and also just changing my lifestyle. That was another big part of it too. It wasn't just the diet or what supplements I'd be taking, but thinking differently and living differently.
Wow, it's such a powerful story, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And I certainly understand the position you're coming from. I myself had a health challenge, and it really does, I guess, provoke a lot of questions in your mind, and helps you, go about things in the way that you may not actually go about things otherwise, in terms of connecting with certain people, or asking questions in the right way, or really challenging the protocols that exist to find out what's right for you. And unfortunately, one of the big messages that we're having for this summit is it's about personalized health, because there's a lot of generic information out there that, if you have this disease, you could try this, but it doesn't work for everybody. If you have, this state of health, you can try this to prevent disease, doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
And so the conversation that we're looking at having here, and the end goal with where we're working to transform world health, is about finding out what's right for everybody at that particular point in time, because it changes as we change as well. Finding out what's right for you, so that you can navigate towards a space that's or maintain a space of health, and avoid these diseases that may come up. And so it's I guess an interesting conversation we have, because if we're looking to eliminate all pain and disease from the planet, how can we possibly achieve that? Well, if you stand in the future and look back, then you can say, well, if we prevent all the disease from happening in the first place, then we're in a state where we don't have disease at all. So that's one conversation. So we'd love to just talk a little bit about that coming up. And the second conversation is that there's such huge epidemics of disease that exist right now, is that we need to be working towards, what would currently term a cure, which is actually looking at more identifying the underlying causes of why people might have symptoms that show up, whether it's weight gain, Lyme disease, whatever it might be for you listening at home, and how we can actually target or address the underlying cause that exists. And so we're having kind of multiple conversations at once in very big arenas, and the aim of this summit is to help people become more aware of the information that exists out there, and more aware of the fact that health is a very personalized conversation. It's not a generic conversation. And that's really amazing to see and to hear that you've been on that journey yourself, and have had to actually go and talk to all the experts that know a lot, but then have to be able to tailor that for your own circumstances and find out what works for you, which is really, really powerful. So thanks again for sharing that, Erin. It's a really great story. What if you had to share a couple of insights with us as to what you've learned in that journey and that process? What could you share with us? Particularly, you mentioned a lot about you changing the foods that you've eaten. You mentioned about changing the way you think and some other lifestyle things. And we've talked with a number of people on this summit already about the fact that our genes don't determine our future. It's our environment and our lifestyle that can make a huge impact as to who we are at this point in time in the state of our health. Can you share with us a couple of insights that you've sort of learnt along the way, and that some of us can start to understand these concepts that we can maybe take on if we're listening at home right now?
Sure. No, I would love to. And I would say one that I'm not always practicing what I preach is probably if we can take breaks from technology. And that can be so difficult when so many of our lives rely on technology. But I would say that if you can just take a break, even, I know there's like expert Marcel Pick who says, even if, and she's a expert on adrenal fatigue and so many things, but she says, even if you can just take 1 day a week. Now that might be difficult for some people to take 1 day a week, although maybe it could be Sunday like today, or, another day, or at least, but I know that may not be practical at this point in time. So even if someone can just take an evening, especially evenings, cut down their time online, I think that makes a significant difference. Just whether it's the electromagnetic frequencies, or just we're looking at these, basically, like I call it the blue light machine. Oh, the other thing would be that in the evening, either put a like the it's called Flux or F-Lux. I think it's free. The software on my computer, so that it tones down the blue. And somebody might think that's not really that important, but it's so many of us are sleep deprived or not getting proper night's rest. So in the evening, we don't want to be seeing that blue light. So that would be something, cutting back on the time online, or at least in the evenings, seeking to kind of get away from the computers, the cell phones and all that, and take some time off before we sleep, not just online right up to the time we go to sleep. The other thing would be, I think this was one of the most important things for me, and that was, so many think when they have a big weight gain, just because of the shows we see, what's on TV or even on the internet, that I think we have this, I don't know what's happened in our society, but that we've got to go harder, stronger, longer. You got to run, work that weight off. Don't be lazy. And I think that so many people, it's not going to work. I was working out with a trainer and doing extremely hardcore workouts, and I was getting heavier and heavier. So obviously that didn't work. Only when I realized, and I don't know if this was really, it was just probably a culmination of things, how I figured it out with talking with different people, but that there are even articles on mainstream that say, doing massive amounts of cardio can make you fat. It just says doing, cardio can make you fat. That was the title. And then if you're just going so hard and trying to work out and go, that might not always work. In fact, many people will do better from slowing down. So I switched from those hardcore, kind of almost boot camp, CrossFit workouts to doing more yoga, Pilates, and instantly that was so many changes implemented at once. But I think that really was when things began to change in a positive way. So I really felt a difference when I would slow down and do exercises, even if it was just gentle yoga, especially gentle yoga. And that's another thing, we've gotten so into this, even with yoga, how we've almost bastardized this tradition of now they have several right around where we live, and you go from yoga into spinning classes immediately afterward. And nothing against spinning. Some people who are in great health that aren't having challenges can jump on those bikes right after yoga for an hour or two. And I used to be able to do that, but I think that even if I can now, I wouldn't, because I think that our bodies, I don't know if we were really, if that's really what we're meant for, running marathons, you know, or just people are doing triathlons and trying so hard, and then they finally have that time where they hit a brick wall. So I would say doing more slow, gentle exercise and slowing down, even if it's just, like I said, even if you can't, in the evening, if you can't take a little time offline or take a little time away from the rat race and relax, and you take a break, read a book, not on a tablet, but read an actual book, and kind of like how we used to live for so many years. And I think that made a big difference for me, just with slowing down. That was a huge difference.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those insights, Erin. And you bring up some great points that I'm sure everybody will be taking note of now. And one of the biggest things that you brought to our attention there was the fact that exercise is different for everybody, that you're doing boot camps, you're doing the high intensity training, you're doing all the things that we would think would be the things that would cause us to lose weight. Yet everybody's body is very different. And some people respond really well to that sort of training. Other people, like yourself, won't respond very well at all to that sort of training. Yes. And that really is one of the biggest insights with personalized health that we're bringing forward now, is that understanding that we're all very, very different. But we're really starting to understand more about the science behind that as well, and how everything is very connected in the body. And previously, when we've been doing, talking about exercise training, and this is still a very new conversation, but where we've been talking about exercise training from the benefits purely from a cardiovascular point of view, or from a musculoskeletal point of view, we talk about losing fat, or we talk about gaining muscle, or toning up, or whatever it might be. But understanding that movement itself is actually what enables our organs to move, and our fascial system to move, and our nerves to slide and glide. And so we're now starting to understand with personalized health a lot of the incorporation of exercises and movement that actually helps with our entire system to move, which can cause a significant a change in weight, a change in health, as opposed to just the benefits of cardio or muscle building or whatever it is that we've previously thought. And so this really does now give us a great platform to speak from, in saying, understanding which people are going to benefit most from doing the sort of high intensity classes, which people are going to benefit most from doing yoga or Pilates, which people are going to benefit most from doing spin classes or doing 100-mile bike rides every day. It really is such a personalized conversation. The good news is that there's something out there that's right for everybody, even if it means that you're sitting at home doing breathing exercises, or maybe just doing some Tai Chi, all the way through to doing marathons. There's something for everybody in there, and everybody's at a different point in time. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us, Erin. And it does go against the grain of what we think, because if you're out there training so hard every day, of course you think you're going to lose weight, because that's what we've been taught. Now we're understanding that that's not actually true. It depends on who you are and even the time in your life as to what results you're going to get. So again, please go and check out ph360.me if you haven't already. They actually incorporate and encapsulate all this into it. It's really quite amazing how you can find out which exercises are best for you, and even which time of day to do them to get the most results, which is really, really helpful, and saves a lot of people a lot of many, many years of trial and error, or of frustration and wondering why they don't work. So it's great we've got this information that's starting to come through. And again, the intention of this summit is to help share this with you so that you can find out exactly what's right for you to be happy and healthy. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Erin. It's such a great point that you raise. And I'd love to delve into a little bit more conversation about weight loss. We're talking today about healthy weight loss. And this is something that is very, very difficult. And again, as we just touched on, it's a personalized conversation. Would you be able to share with us, maybe some more insights that you've got? I know that you hang out with some great people that are very knowledgeable in the area of health as well. You have an amazing blog and an amazing site that you were growing, especially about sharing a lot of information with people. Maybe actually, even if you could just share where people can find out some more information about what you're talking about here, if you've got a URL or a website that people can go and visit to find out more about you.
Sure, of course. It's healthnutnews.com, and that's my site. And so if they would go there, there are many articles I will do. I kind of tend to do breaking news, and that's why I say take my own advice with slowing down because I'm constantly working. But it's healthnutnews.com, and I do a variety of stories on there from just everything, from many different things. But I would, on the site, I will publish some studies like people need to be aware of, like fluoride. Now they're showing that it causes obesity. Studies have shown ADD, depression, anxiety. So helping people to be educated on that, and hopefully not be drinking fluoridated water, and so they can find out much on there about the journey, and there's videos. It's all free. I have a book on there as well. I keep forgetting that. I don't sell the book. It's free. I've always given it away. So I'm really not sure. I've only had the site 22 months. I'm honored have millions of unique visitors a month at this point, and I'm honored at that traffic. So I've really just right now I don't sell anything. So I just have it all for free. So they can get a book there too. That I wrote about my journey. It has my whole protocol that I did. That doesn't say it works for everybody, but so many people wanted to know. So it lists it there as well with my book.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us, Erin. It's beautiful. So please, if you're listening in either live or the replay here, go and check out healthnutnews.com to find out more about the amazing work that Erin's doing to share information with everybody. So thank you for that, Erin, and we encourage everyone to go and check that out. So Erin, please share with us a bit more about this this whole concept of weight loss and healthy weight loss.
The weight loss, yes. So yeah, I think that I think it's the same with exercise, and you're right that it doesn't mean that some people can't really thrive doing high intensity, and I think that many can. But just like exercise, that each person is different. I believe that diet is different for each person as well. So many say to me, and we see this, we're just bombarded by this online. I think especially in the health world, they say, look, I know that it's got to be low grains, and it's got to be low, even kind of low carb, and they're doing, more high fat, or other people are saying, I'm doing the low fat and I'm doing lots of carbs, or, I mean, there's so many variations. And for me, I think what worked is a balance. I'm a Libra, so just by nature, I think always seeking to be more balanced. And I don't think that's as exciting for some people, because a lot of people want to think that there's a one diet fits all, and that, if they're doing not that I think fruit is a problem. And that's so interesting, because you'll have one school of thought, or whether it's paleo or whatever it is, but that says you can't do fruit, you can't do fructose, and that and so for some people that might be true. For some people, maybe they can't eat any fruit. But I was for some time thinking I couldn't eat fruit, I couldn't do, that I had to be extreme. And I realized that extremes did not work for me. So now I've incorporated some fruit into my diet. I probably have cut back on the grains, because I go back and forth, but I think that it involves a balance. I think if someone were eating, I think there was a noticeable difference when I cut back on the grains. But the most important thing, I think, is no matter what people, what they gravitate toward in their diet, that they eat organic, that they eat as locally as possible. And so many might think that's just, so basic knowledge, but for instance, some of the biggest chain grocery stores, even if you go to their delis, it's not organic. It still could be GMO with those, the main foods in there. If you're eating corn, soy, or any of those, because it's in so much we eat in our diets, for some people, that they eat organic. I did notice a big difference when I was really strict, even at those big chain health food stores, that I would, think, okay, this is, this is from the deli, it looks healthy. But if it had anything GMO in it, I think it made a difference when I cut that out, because also some studies have shown there could be a link between weight gain and eating genetically modified foods. The other thing was that I'm not like a total opponent to grains, I'm not opposed to them. But I think that if you're eating them, you just need to be careful, because they say now that our wheat has glyphosate, even if it's organic. So I definitely would, personally, I cut back on the grains. But again, it was more of a balance, not doing such extreme diets. For so much time, I was all raw and thought, got to be 100% raw. And I realized that, especially with healing my gut, which was a huge part of all this, that if I was eating 100% raw diet, that was not really conducive. So once I added some cooked foods, like a broth or a vegetable soup with cooked vegetables, that was much better for me than just going with those extremes, all raw or no fruit, or, and I didn't have to eat a ton of fat, so I know they're extremes, but for me it was balance. But the main thing, if you can grow your own, that's awesome, or at least buy from a farmer who doesn't spray if you're with your produce. And not eating genetically modified food really made a difference for me. And also one last thing, which my better half has kind of taught me, eating, if you can eat less at night, really before you're going to sleep. So many of us want to get hungry before bed, but that's really a time when our body doesn't need to be digesting food. So these might seem like obvious things, but I admit I was guilty of doing a few of those. So.
That's beautiful, Erin. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think, what we think is obvious often isn't. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because there's probably a lot of people listening right now that have heard these words before, but maybe haven't applied this information to themselves, or maybe don't think it's quite as important as some other concepts. But it really is a really important time to start being aware of what's happening with your health. Whether you're suffering from disease right now, it's really important to be aware of what food goes in your mouth and a lot of the other things that influence your lifestyle and your environment. And if you're in a state of health right now, one of the concepts we talked about and have mentioned a few times on the summit is that our definition of health as a society is a little bit skewed. And if we don't have any symptoms and we're reasonably thin, then we think we're healthy. And that's kind of how we define health at the moment is, if we're not in pain and we look pretty good, then we're healthy. Unfortunately, as we know, that's not the case, because we don't know how healthy we are on the inside. It's only the day that we wake up have symptoms and we're pretty thin. And so that really is the definition of health. If you're feeling like you're healthy right now, please still take the time to invest in your health, because you either pay now or you pay later. Is kind of how it works. So we really encourage you to take note of what's really working for you right now. And I want to just visit a couple of conversations in that conversation then, Erin, because you bring up such a great point at the moment. Things are so confused. If it's juice fast, if it's the high carb, no carb, low carb, high fat, low fat, no fat, there's so many different things out there. There's a million different diets that pop up every day. The avocado diet, the banana diet, there's literally a diet for almost everything now. And there's just going to be more and more coming out there. And we talk about the concept of that because people try that and it works for them. And so if it works for them, they like to talk about it and say, hey, I ate just bananas, nothing else, just bananas. And it cured my disease of whatever the disease might have been. And then they'll go and tell people about it and share it and go, oh my God, you guys have to just do the banana diet. Just eat bananas and it fixes everything. And it's all done with pure intention. And people share their experience because they say, hey, it worked for me. I want to share it with everybody. But we're now understanding that worked for them. It's not necessarily going to work for everybody out there. And so it's a confusing time because there's so much information that people are saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And there's almost every diet that exists out there with the research that even exists today. And so it's a time where it's confusing for the general person as to what they should do. And this is really our message is go and find out what's right for you. This is, we live in a time and an age where this information actually exists already. You can find out the foods that are very, very good for you and the foods that aren't so great for you. And as you shared, Erin, as well, that the foods are not only different for everybody, but actually different at each times in our life. What we used to eat when we were younger, we may not be so good for us now, or some of the things that we didn't like when we were younger may actually be the best thing for us right now. And it's really important to sort of understand yourself on your journey and how all these other parts of our life influence what we eat and how we exercise. The climate that we're in influences the food that we need. If it's really, really hot, we'll feel like a juice or a water. If it's really, really cold, we'll feel like a soup or something warm to keep us, to keep our temperature up. There's a lot of different things, different climates will influence us, the different stress that we're under. If we're stressed all day at work and we've got a really tough boss, we might want to come home and feel like drinking wine and eating chocolate, for example, because we're trying to get hits of serotonin and get into an alpha state. There's so many different things that influence the way we eat and what our body feels like we need. So please be mindful of all these things is probably the biggest message of this summer. Just for listening at home right now, take the time to find out what's good for you. If you've tried a lot of things and you've been to see lots of people, again, that cooked food is a bit better for you than just the raw. That's a really important understanding for a lot of people. And I was actually in the same situation as you, where I was lower in digestive enzymes naturally. It means that I didn't process food so well, which is I'm predicting the same case for you. And I'll just give a little background behind that, because we work in a lot of fields of personalized health. We look at the different shapes and sizes of people, which we can determine a constitution, Ayurvedic medicines, Chinese medicines that come into play. And from that, we can understand, even in a very predictive capacity, what things might be better for you or what things might not work for you so well. And the fact of the matter is that raw foods don't work for everybody. Cooked foods don't work for everybody. Needing lots of fat in the diet is great for lots of people and not great for some people. Doing cardio exercise is great for some people, but doing strength training is great for some people. And we're all just such different beings. We're all unique. There's not one single one of us for all of us. And I really love that you're sharing so much of this information and making the research available on your site so that people can check it out and find out what's right for them. Healthnutnews.com was the link there. If you haven't checked that out yet, please make sure you do. So Erin, thanks so much for sharing that perspective with us. It's really, really great. Love just to find out a little bit more of the tangible side, just for those listening at home. Again, we're talking about healthy weight loss, and there's a lot of people I'm sure that are watching in that are looking to either lose significant amounts of weight or just shift the extra stubborn pounds that may be there. From our perspective, we obviously talk about more of the health side of things, but again, society tells us that we need to lose weight. So weight's a big common topic out there in the world. Could you just talk us through maybe a little bit about the tangible side of things? Like, what does someone actually have to do to be able to get into that space? Like, do we need to be more conscious with our shopping? Do we need to be like this journey? If everyone's listening at home right now says, yeah, it's great, I love the concepts, but where do I actually start? How do I actually start this journey? Could you share with us a little bit about that from your perspective, Erin?
Sure. Yes. I think that it's not just as important to eat the right foods, but I think you might have said in there that to maybe stop eating certain foods as well. Although another thing I want to say is that some people go to extremes, even if they're not, like they're doing a mixture, not super high carb or super high fat, that they think they can't have any indulgences. And like, so you mentioned the chocolate, and I think that's important and something for everybody to remember, that sometimes if we just, if we don't allow ourselves to indulge once in a while or have a little bit of chocolate or a little piece of that chocolate cake at a party, then I think things can backfire quickly. So yeah, that's one thing that you made me think of. And so I guess where to begin? For me, I think that for me, I had to write it out, kind of make a plan of what I was going to do. So that might help for some people, just to almost keep a journal, or, now you can do it online or on your phone. And just, they might want to start by just going through the kitchen. I mean, I guess that's where we start. That's where we begin as far as food is concerned. So with shopping, they might want to go through the kitchen and give it to somebody else, some of those bad foods. Or some people feel like they just want to eat the rest of those and then start with a fresh slate or plate, so to speak. So for me, I would kind of have a list of what I wanted to get at the store. And I was also seeking, and I think this is important no matter what diet we're doing, to eat less processed foods, things that are in boxes, packages, although I understand that it's difficult to get away from that completely. But I would try to make a simple list of things that I needed when I would go to the store. And another thing that was important for me that really helped, and I forgot, was food combining. If people look up, there's some easy food combining charts online that are typical. And again, maybe this doesn't work for everybody, but I believe that to some extent it helps everyone. People eat a sandwich; they have a protein and a carb together. So when I didn't do that, and I kind of followed just a simple food combining chart, there's many online. They're all, I mean, if you do Google image, I'm sure for free. That was important too. So I kind of went through the kitchen and got rid of things that I didn't want to have there. And I thought I was eating healthy, but I did have to change. And so, I know, another thing too, that for some people, they have to do baby steps. I admit that for me, everyone's different, that I kind of went out there and just changed everything. But for some people, it might be the lean in theory, where they just will slowly start to implement changes in their diet and add good things and maybe take away some of the bad. So it depends on the person. For me, I just like to go in there, like just the bowl, and go in and change it overnight. But for others, they might want to gently lean in and make changes in their diet. But even if just immediately they could, the next trip to the grocery store, pay attention and take heed to making sure the food is non-GMO, organic or local, or seek to go to the farmer's market more frequently, even if, like I said, it's not certified organic, but they have foods that aren't sprayed, because I understand it can be very expensive to get the certified organic things at the grocery store. Perhaps, and this might seem severe, I don't know why it seems severe for some people, is to start a garden. You know, for centuries, people had gardens. If you go to Europe, and I'm sure you see in countries, in many European countries or other parts of the world in general, people have gardens. And so while things are in season and you can grow, just have a small garden in your yard, even if it's just to start with spices, or on a balcony if you're in an apartment in the city, or at your windowsill. So it's those small changes. And I think it just depends on the individual, but just literally, oh, that's the other thing, that some people feel like, okay, January 1st, I'm going to start, but it can just be your next trip to the store, or your next trip to the farmer's market, or your next meal, where you make those small changes that will make a difference. And another thing is that I felt that, finally I had just said, okay, I'm going to stay at this weight. So I embraced it. I think at some point I just said, okay, I own it. This is how I am. I love myself. And only then really did the weight change, because I don't think that someone needs to say, okay, this is where I'm going to be forever. But I do think, not that I want to impose my beliefs on anyone else, but for me anyway, I had to accept myself how I was right then, and love my body at wherever I am in the moment. I have to love my body then, and love myself. And once that happened for me, I can't speak for anyone else, then I felt that, wow, then I was able to make the changes I wanted to do when I finally accepted myself how I was, and my body just as it was. So that's another thing that, at least for me, is very important.
Wow, a lot of great tangible steps there, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love how you share. It's just starting small. You don't have to go cold turkey and rip everything out of your fridge and your cupboards. It's about just saying, cool, just make some small changes, and particularly sharing that you just got to be comfortable and just love yourself as who you are and where you're at. We've talked a number of different conversations about our mind and about our thoughts and about our perceptions this week on the summit. And it really is a powerful time to understand that how we think about ourselves, how we think about our future, how we even think about the way that we go about food or our weight, really can be a huge factor in changing our health status. And that's great that you can share that with us in that context too. So thank you for that. Now, just to remind everybody, we've got the opportunity to engage live with Erin as we're on this call, and interact and ask any questions that you'd like. There's a whole heap of questions and comments coming through as we've been speaking. So if you'd like to speak, please go ahead and raise your hand or pop some comments in. I'm just going to just go through a couple quick ones here. There's a lot of people that are really enjoying this. Erin looks so slim and healthy today. It's so great. Grace says she's in that place right now, trying to figure out what's been causing her pain. Also great, she uses an app called Twilight to tone down the light on her phone at night. It's great. Emma says, thank you for sharing your experience with changing your exercise routine. For me, yoga and Pilates helped me stay slim for a while, but eventually didn't. I realized my body was so different, and I had to rebuild I had to rebuild muscle and do less yoga for some time, which was a surprise to me at first. Thank you, Emma, for sharing that. There's a lot of people in the same situation. Evelyn says, phew, I totally understand now why my best friend has failed at getting me to join her for the vigorous spin classes she loves. I'm active, but in other ways. That's great, Erin. Hannah says, I love Erin, such a big heart. And there's a question coming through here for Evelyn that says, Erin, I've lost weight many times in my life, but I haven't been able to sustain the weight loss, which is why I've lost weight so many times. Erin, what can I do to sustain the weight loss once and for all? Have you got any insights you can share with either Evelyn or anyone listening at home right now, that you can shed some light on that for us, Erin?
Sure. I think that's a very important question that Evelyn asks. And I think that can be the hardest part, because I've been there in my life too, where I never was able to successfully keep it off over 2 years like this now. And I would say that I guess consistency, that was a thing for me, was consistency. And I do agree with the other comment that sometimes, like the other person who wrote in who said that they did the yoga and Pilates and their body changed, that can happen too. So sometimes we'll have to just see what our body needs. But as far as keeping the weight off, I think that's the biggest question everybody wants to know, that they're not going to yo-yo. And I would say that consistency. And well, for me, I know that everyone's different. Sometimes I will, want to impose my beliefs on others, but I know that doesn't work. So I would say that for me, that some insight would be that a little bit of a schedule. I don't really necessarily have an eating schedule like some people have 3 meals a day, or that's a whole other topic, whether you do smaller, more frequent meals. But to keep consistency, and to, especially like with the working out, whether you're doing yoga and Pilates or doing more vigorous, high intensity workouts, to really stay dedicated to that schedule. And another thing for me was I think any of us can say, like, around all the holidays, if there's just kind of processed junk food, I think once in a while we can indulge, but when it's constantly around us, that I had to learn the power to say no. So I think that can be difficult for all of us in life for one reason or the other, but to say no to some of those temptations, but also not to, I guess, completely just deprive myself from those foods. So I'd have them around. So it's about balance, and to keep consistency, and to perhaps make a little bit of a schedule that, and another thing, if you have a family, or I can know this is a question I hear all the time with family, spouses, mates, it can be difficult to not have those foods in the house. But another thing, eventually, if you really want to, you've gotten to that point, you've gotten to the weight you want to stay at, and you're feeling good, and you feel like wherever you're at, that if you don't have the foods in the house, that can make a big difference. Some of the, just complete junk foods that really none of us would eat. So that was huge for me. And there would be those times, and there still are, where in the evening, especially, that's how I'm guilty of, that's when I want to, eat the junk food. I'll go to the fridge and think, oh, I don't even have that here. What? Get mad at myself. But then I eat a healthier snack. So if you don't have, even if it's some organic, there can be organic junk food too, or ice cream, or whatever it is. And I just don't have those in the house. And that really made a difference for me. But I know that can be difficult when you have other family members who might eat differently. So I know people who even, honestly, the two of us, if he can eat a little more chocolate, but I want to eat it more frequently, I just ask him to hide it. So there can be other, that works well, that you can work out something with your partner, family. And
right, absolutely. And that's some great little tips there too, Erin, which is really important. And I'd love to visit that a little bit more too, and just having a conversation about some of the other things, even outside of our nutrition, that can really help contribute towards healthy weight loss. And as we know, the foods that we put inside our body are very, very important. But there's a lot of other things, like you're starting to bring up now, that we need to consider to be able to be successful with a healthy weight loss. Would you mind just sharing a couple other things that you found along your journey that you believe are important, or some other things that you're collating with the information that you bring together on your site that we can start to be mindful of? We've mentioned a few of those sort of things as we've gone, but just to visit that in a little bit more detail, what other things are really important for healthy weight loss aside from just nutrition?
I think that, this is not really a nutrition, but I'll get into a couple other things, but purified water and hydrating more. Again, these might be obvious things to people, but I think sometimes folks need gentle reminders. So hydrating and clean, purified water. This is just kind of a little tangent, but I don't really recommend bottled water, because we have the plastic and the BPA, all that. So I recommend like a cheap RO filter, $99 or $89, and install that. Then you don't have the plastic and the waste. So that's important, is hydrating. But other tips along the way, or things that helped me in my journey, were, for instance, not everyone can afford to go get, and I understand this, I've been there, to go get a massage, say, every week, but we can every day do, just to help kind of with our lymphatic system. And it doesn't have to be really harsh dry brushing like I used to do, but even just a gentle massage every day, especially for women, just to do a massage every morning. And if you have a rebounder, just a little bit of jumping every day to help that lymphatic system. And actually mine eventually broke, and I jumped on the bed. I even posted this online, and people thought that was funny. But until I got the new rebounder, and they're very inexpensive, you can get them at almost any store. I just jumped on the bed for a couple of days and nothing broke. But so I think that was really helpful for me, was and also that so many of us will even forget nighttime, that we will, this is big, that we will get up in the morning and just get right on the computers or get right online, and to just get things moving in the morning. I've done a couple programs around the country that I've completed, courses, and one of the things from going to different institutes around the US is I see right away they want to get us moving and just get everything moving. And also that drinking more water, hydrating, will help us get things moving through the body, which is good. Another thing would be, let's see, what else would I say? There was another thing on my mind there, but I got so excited I forgot, which happens sometimes. I would say that I know, I remember that this is another big thing, that throughout the day, that because even when we're online, so now we're not talking about the morning or just the evening, but I really believe, and as I've studied it more, two things, that getting up even every 15 minutes and just stretching, because I don't think that our bodies, or even just stand up and for a few seconds and do an exercise for a moment, because I really don't think that our bodies were meant to be just 8 hours a day, whether we start so young and are trained sitting in a desk at school, and then we're sitting in a desk at home or work, that's not how our bodies were ideally, we were not supposed to be. So again, these might seem like obvious things, but really another thing is to implement these, that you've got to write a list, have reminders, find a friend or family member so you can help each other, because setting all this up and saying, I'm going to do this, is great, but then following through is another thing. So for me, I was so fortunate because I had the online followers and readers that I could say, hey guys, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And then that they held me accountable. But find a friend, that's another thing that will really help to work out with. Or, you don't have to have a personal trainer. Not everyone can afford one, but that you have a friend, a family member, even if it's a long distance friend online, that's going to talk with you, and you help keep each other accountable. If you can't afford a health coach or all of that, then at least you can do those things, which really help. And then for some, and I'll admit I did this, this is huge now, intermittent fasting. I know that some people can't go hours without eating, but I do believe that if you can, obviously we're going to be fasting while we're sleeping, and if you don't eat that food before bed, it's not like, I think these people think now with intermittent fasting they have to go 8 hours in the day when they're awake without eating. But even if you do that several hours before you go to bed, and then there's, again, it's different for everyone. Maybe people need a meal in the evening, but I don't think it's really great at least not for me, to eat right before bed. And then perhaps when they get up, get the body moving before they just start eating, which we're kind of trained to do as a society, get up and eat this big breakfast, that maybe we take a little break. And I think that intermittent fasting helps, along with the frequent getting up and taking a break from work too. I think it helps your eyes and your whole body not staring at a computer for so many hours straight, or whatever you're doing with your job at home.
Well, Erin, so many amazing things to consider there, and thank you for sharing that. And everyone listening at home, I'm sure taking away some great concepts, hopefully take some notes as well. The concept of either intermittent fasting or doing some detoxification of your body, can be really, really beneficial for a lot of people, just in different ways and different times. Getting a friend, to do things with, just moving in the mornings, and getting a massage, they're all just such great tangible tips, Erin. So thank you for sharing those with us. And we actually believe so much in the massage side of things. There's one of the bonuses that everybody's received from being on this summit is a free self-massage book, because we're very aware that a lot of people don't have the time or don't have the finances to be able to afford a massage. This is something you can do yourself, and the benefits of massage are huge, as you share. And it's not just about actually the physiology and changing some of the lymphatic flow and changing some of the removal of toxins in the body. It's also about the actual act of physical touch, and how that can release and stimulate different hormones that can actually change your brain chemistry, can change a whole state of stress, can change the way that you actually perceive the world. So that is a really important part, and it's something that does, the physical touch side of things in most people's lives and a lot of people's lives gets neglected a lot because of how busy we are. So thank you for sharing those very tangible understandings about all the other things that are so important, even just aside from food. And we've just got a few more questions coming through. I'd love to just jump to a couple of those. I've got a question saying, Erin, do you know if other autoimmune conditions can also be solved via nutrition, exercise, and changing how we feel? I have a friend with rheumatoid arthritis. What would you recommend as a starting point for her? So we'll throw that out there and see if you've got any sort of thoughts or comments for Evelyn's friend there.
I think that, sure. I think that everyone is different, but I know someone in particular who tried the Western medicine route with rheumatoid arthritis, and so with the RA, they were doing on steroids, and when they started to make, and I have a little bit of arthritis, or did, with the Lyme, and I still have to watch that because that's kind of your number one thing is joint pain. But this is rheumatoid arthritis, so that this person I knew was very, very serious, and they were not well off, really bad. And so they made huge diet changes, and yes, it made a significant difference. I don't know if they were to, if they if they had to do some medications initially with that as well, because RA, I mean, it can eventually take your life. So I would say that that a good starting point might be to research online on some of the bigger natural health sites. I've probably done a little bit on that, but some of the really big major sites to look on, just to do some searches. And if they have a doctor, preferably, or even a naturopath in their area that's maybe more holistic minded, that could help them, because it is, it is serious, and but it can be even more serious when someone's taking long-term steroids, which can be very detrimental. So you'll see, I think it was Kathleen Turner, the actress, and she had the RA, and she said that the steroids, I mean, over a long-term usage were, not good.
Yeah, we're finding out a lot more about the side effects of these long-term medications that we're taking now, and I know from a point of view with science and medicine, we're advancing a lot in understanding more about some of these issues, Evelyn, as you suggest there, about rheumatoid arthritis, and the fact that it's a very inflammatory condition in the joints. And so we know that foods can have a huge impact on the inflammation that exists in the body, and we we're very grateful to work with a lot of people actually across the world that can significantly change their symptoms and actually reverse the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis by understanding more about their diet, but also about all the other factors, as we speak about with personalized health, what we refer to as the epigenetics, all the things around us that can influence who we are and which genes we have expressed or switched on at any point in time. So be mindful as well that the climate can have a huge impact. I just wanted to share that some people that we work with in a medical capacity actually literally shift locations, and that actually significantly changes their health in terms of the symptoms they experience with arthritis. Of course, not everybody has that opportunity or has the flexibility to be able to move locations or shift countries, but even replicating your ideal climate indoors is something that's very possible to do now, whether it's understanding more about the hydration in the air, understanding more about the temperature that's right for you, understanding more about even colors and locations of things in the house can make a huge difference as well. So just bear in mind that there's a lot of things that influence. Stress is a huge one as well for arthritis that we're now finding a lot of links to. In fact, stress is a huge factor that we're finding is linking to most chronic disease states that exist. So the stress can be physiological stress that's in the environment, can be very much a mental stress, can be emotional stress. So there's a lot of things that we're now understanding contribute towards these sort of chronic disease states. So please take the time to look at all the different things in your life, not just the foods, but foods can play a really, really big role. And there's I guess a lot of research now that shows some of the general foods that can be higher in anti-inflammatory properties, things like ginger, like turmeric. There's many other foods actually that can have flaxseed can be quite helpful, garlic, and quite a lot of those. But again, it's really understanding more about what's right for you at this point in time, because they're shown generally to be good for everybody. But it's really important to understand what's right for you, because there may be other things coexisting in your body at that particular point in time that a different food might be better for you to provide that same anti-inflammatory property. So it's I really want to just highlight again, we haven't talked much at all about this series, but please do yourself a favor if you're in this position, go and check out ph360.me, because it actually is very, very specific. It's there's been over 10 years of research that's gone into it from international doctors and scientists and specialists all over the world. They factor in Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, all of the different anthropometries, as we spoke about, with different shapes and sizes. They look at different endocrinology, so the different hormone levels, different organ states of health, a lot of different things without any invasive samples at all, to be able to measure your phenotype, which is the way that your genes are switched on and off, and can give you very, very specific understandings about the foods that are better for you at this point in time. And they're changing, I know, transforming a lot of thousands of lives around the world, people healing from all sorts of things like arthritis and heart disease and diabetes and all those sorts of things. So take the time to check it out. It can really help save a lot of time. Our mission and what I spend my life doing is actually sharing with the world about helping them find out what's healthy for them and what could be the right thing to help them move to a state of health or prevent any diseases from occurring. And it really is, there's just so much time, there's years and decades of people's lives that can be saved just by understanding these concepts right now, which we have this information available. So please take the time to check that out. And I really appreciate these questions that are coming through, and there's so many different thanks coming through from these conversations, Erin, coming through. There's lots of support. Everybody's really appreciating the comments. A lot of things from Hannah saying, me too, all my cravings come at night. I wonder who's about night time that does this. Emma says, my kids jump on the bed all the time. Maybe I'll just have to join them next time. Thank you for the great tips, Erin. Thank you for the answers, Erin. Hannah asks, Erin, how did you come to love your body and be comfortable in your skin? And that's a really great question, Erin, because we've had some comments, and obviously looking at Erin right now, you look very slim and very healthy, Erin. And some people, like yourself, rewind back to when you were 50% body fat, I think you said, which is quite high. How did you go about loving your body, and how did you go about being comfortable in your own skin? Because society teaches us so much that we all have to be these slim, healthy, supermodel looking figures. How do you actually even go about that in your own mind when you're in that actual space yourself? Could you share a little bit about that with us, please?
Sure, that's a great question Hannah asks, Matt. And I think that for me, there are a few things that I realized that we're just these vessels, these bodies we're in, isn't who really they don't make us who we are. And so loving, when eventually we will age, we hope, gracefully and well, but that I had to love who I was as a person. And then also, I think that it was just, no matter what state my body was in, that even if I was, heavy and I had like the thick thighs and had to go try to find this, the pants that would fit me, that were big enough, that I just, that's a great question. But I would say that it's realizing that I was more than my body, that I would love who I was inside and just accept that this is for today, because we can only live for today, that this is how my body looked right now, and that I would love my body as it was. Because really, if we don't, if we don't, then we're not doing ourselves any favors. So I think you have to learn and kind of maybe go inside, and it can take time. I think sometimes it can be a lifetime struggle for us to truly love ourselves as we are and be happy with how we are today, and know that no matter what our pasts are, or even what we're doing, it's dealing with struggles in the present, that you're a beautiful person inside and out, and that you must love yourself in order to love anyone else. And you find that self-love and acceptance, and makes a big difference once you can achieve that.
Beautiful, Erin. Thank you for sharing those words with us. And for everybody listening at home right now, that's, if nothing else, for this whole conversation, that's one of the most important messages right now, is to really find a place and a space to love yourself for who you are, because from that foundation, everything is possible and anything is possible. And that's some very beautiful words you share, and so thank you so much for that. Erin, I'd love just to ask you a question. I know we're getting close on time here, but I'm very interested in the future. I love talking about the future. In fact, I talk about the future health and future medicine in many different spaces. Love to ask you about your thoughts on what our hope is for humanity moving forward. We're currently experiencing such epidemics of chronic disease all over the world. It's not just in, we're talking a lot with people from America, but all over the world now we have huge chronic disease epidemics. You've been in a state yourself with very chronic disease, with misdiagnoses, with having to find lots of stuff out for yourself, and transitioning to a state of health. What hope do we have as humanity, and where do you see things going in the near future, maybe over the next couple of years, or maybe the next few decades? Where can we start, and how do we actually transition from this point where we are to a state with I guess, ultimate world health?
That's a wonderful question. I do have hope, Matt, and part of it is because of the internet. It's the very thing that sometimes we become addicted to with technology, and sometimes we have to, have moderation. But also because of the internet, I think that things really, that there's a shift happening, because before we had a few channels on TV, or that's if people watch television. I don't really watch much, but I used to, and that's where we get our information. But now with the internet, I believe it's kind of revolutionary. It's been around 20 years, and I see huge changes. And I don't think that any longer people have to be, with TV programming, that they won't be programmed by what they're seeing on a TV screen, but instead with the internet, we have the ability to kind of do what we want to do, find the information that we want to find. And it's I think that the future, what do I see? I see that more and more some of these big kind of corporate messages that, you need drugs or you need this, I think that's going to crumble, and eventually people will stand up for themselves, and there will be, I think it's revolutionary that people will take charge of their own health, and that they will be able to talk more. I mean, I don't know how we really, besides our friends or neighbors or writing a letter, even 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we couldn't, there was no other way to communicate or make a phone call. But now other people can, even if they don't, they're just finding their way with their journey and think they might have an autoimmune challenge or aren't diagnosed, they can talk with other people online. There are countless groups on every form of social media, or many, many sites where they can talk with one another and help one another. And some people, I think that not to sound too out there, but like the big brother might say that's bad, and you've got to listen to just what your doctor tells you, because this is what he or she was taught in med school, which oftentimes that's funded by the big pharma, if you don't mind me being so far out. But that now we can take control of our own destiny and health, and I think the internet is a big part of that. So I see that only becoming bigger and bigger as more and more people drop their cable and go to wonderful summits like this, where they can learn information from people, and they don't have to rely on just, not that I'm not saying that there aren't wonderful doctors out there, but maybe they realize, wow, I'm in a struggle, and this doctor isn't telling me to take a pill all the time, isn't right. And I'm going to talk with a friend online or through a summit like this, and I'm going to find a doctor who I trust and who I like to help me. Or maybe they realize eventually they don't, just depends on the person, they don't need that doctor, and they can do that naturally. But yeah, I think the internet is a huge part of it, and it's going to become bigger as we move away from, the few channels, and now have zillions of channels online to communicate through.
That's it's beautiful insight, Erin, and thank you. I know we both share that common hope for the world, and I believe we're going to achieve that too. And the internet is such a great way for us to be able to share and connect, and for all of you on this summit series right now, that's how we're here, and be able to share and bring all this information for free to you, so that you can understand more about how to be healthy and happy for your unique situation. So, Erin, thank you so much for giving up your time to be here. We're so appreciative of the work that you're doing. Please go and check out Erin's site. Let me just grab that up again one more time here. It is healthnutnews.com. Please check out the great work that Erin's doing, sharing her story and her knowledge with the world. Please go and check out ph360.me if you want to find out more about your specific circumstances, about the foods and exercises and all these things that are right for you at this point in time. A huge thank you to everyone for being here. And I really wanted to just plant that seed of it's now time to really find out about what's right for you. And if nothing else from Erin's story, it's been such a great understanding as to the trials and the triumphs that can happen throughout one's personal health journey. I know that there's so many at home that have been experiencing that or may experience this in the future, and there's hope for you yet, and you do have a fighting chance to be at the space and the time you want to be in. So thank you so much for being here. Please go ahead and jump on the Facebook page if you haven't already for all the updates from the speakers and the schedules and the bonuses and the gifts. And please also make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, where you can get access to all the video replays for free for this whole summit series. So take the time to do that. Thank you so much for being here, investing this time into your health, and we really look forward to supporting you on your personal health journey. So thanks again, Erin, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin.